Hello everyone and welcome back to another Marvel Crisis Protocol Battle Report for the channel, and today in this standard size 17 threat match, the Cabal, led by the mighty Malekith, are taking to the table against the Inhumans with a little bit of outside assistance. So really looking forward to seeing how Malekith performs on the table, but we can talk about him a bit more as we look at the two sides. So thanks to Malekith weighing in at a mighty 7 threat, there's only 4 miniatures in the Cabal side, and even though Red Skull is here, Malekith is the leader, and he basically has the polar opposite of the Sam Wilson affiliation bonus that he brings to Cabal. So every time they daze or KO an enemy, one of them can remove a status, gain 1 power, and move short. Basically, it's literally the Sam Wilson one, just not on an ally going down, it's when an enemy goes down. So it encourages murder, which is what Malekith is really good at. He rolls a lot of dice even for his most basic of attacks. He has a massive attack called the Butcher of Thors, and it's all in all very, very scary. But he is 7 threat, he takes up a very big share of the team, and he's also a very impractical miniature to get into certain locations. Table today doesn't have any big buildings or anything like that, just a couple of small ones, so it shouldn't be too bad, but with those wings poking out, it is really awkward trying to fit him in places. But anyway, Red Skull's here, Baron Zemo, and of course also Crossbones. Their tactics cards, we come right over here. The Black Bifrost, Midnight Phantasmagoria, Smash, Illicit Tech, and Cosmic Invigoration. So there's also only 4 miniatures in the Inhuman side, but they are splitting themselves across quite a few powerful characters, 4 threat across the board with the exception of Black Bolt. Obviously he's the leader, and he is 5 threat. Leading the Inhumans, in which case his wife, Medusa, and then Ronan, who isn't really an Inhuman but he's in their roster for space reasons. But then, a bit of a wild card, they've decided to bring along Omega Red. See how he performs alongside them. He'll be spreading out poison and whatnot. And there, of course, the Inhumans are immune to it. Their tactics cards are Eyes on the Prize Medpack, Carbonadium, Synthesizer, Attilan Rising, and the Inhuman Royal Family. So there's 2 classic Crisis cards selected today. Fear Group's World is Worthy Terrorized Citizens. It's the Hammer's 18 threat, 1 victory point for each hammer, and it gives you 1 extra attack but makes tactics cards cost 1 more. And then the threat value being played is the Secure, which is the Infinity Formulas. You gain 1 victory point for each serum canister you're securing during the cleanup phase, and during the power phase anyone contesting a serum canister gains more power. So there's a lot more dice being rolled and a lot more power being generated, which probably means it'll be a very bloody, very quick match, but at least it'll be fun. So we have our 4 hammers, 1 hammer there, 1 there, 1 there, and then the other one's behind the Daily Bugle there, and then the Infinity Formulas, 1 there, 1 there, 1 there, and 1 right there. And here we are all set up and good to go, and it's very weird seeing a giant tiger dragon thing on the table. It feels like it should be Age of Sigmar or something. Either way, the Inhumans are on your left and the Cabal are on your right, and the Cabal have taken first activation. 4 miniatures on each side as well, so unless someone gets very unlucky in turn 1, that's the way it will progress into turn 2 as well. But we can take a look where everyone is. Crossbones and Baron Zemo are down this end of the table. Malekith is right here because it's the only place he could fit, really. And then Red Skull is right up there in the middle of the road. And if we come over this side of the table, we have Ronan and Medusa down this side of the table. We have Black Bolt in the middle, ready to go for that hammer there. And then we have Omega Red off on his lonesome, also in the middle of the road, just on the opposite end of the table. So with that, we are ready to jump into Battle Round 1 and see how this plays out with Big Malekith on the table. So the game got started with Baron Zemo moving up in that long movement, giving him more than enough to get into position to snatch up the side flank hammer here. He got as close as he could to the car there to try and give himself some cover, but yeah, he was just within 1 of the hammer, paid his 1 power to pick it up. Worth noting, since it wasn't mentioned before, but along with everything else he's going to be bringing to the table, Malekith generates 1 extra power in the power phase, and anyone attacking him can't modify their attack dice either. Omega Red got the game started for the Inhumans, moving short unfortunately, but that was enough with 2 moves to get close enough to the hammer on this flank of the table to pay his 1 power and pick it up. Not close enough to be contesting the serum canister he left behind though, and I'm not sure Black Bolt can get to it, so that might have been a little bit of a misplay putting him there for that hammer. We'll see. Next up for the Cabal was Crossbones, also moving small twice and staying just within range 1 of the closest Infinity Formula to where he started, so he's currently the only one contesting that one. Ronan the Accuser moved up next for the Inhumans. He's contesting the closest serum to their deployment line, and then he used his universal weapon on Zemo, although in hindsight should probably have been Crossbones, because if a wild had been rolled, the push could have moved him away from the serum enough that he wouldn't be contesting it. But it doesn't matter because 1, a wild didn't get rolled, and 2, after defense rolls, no damage was dealt. The Red Skull activated, moved up medium for his first activation, then tapped the Cosmic Cube for his second action, gains 3 power, he roll 5 dice, and for every skull take 1 damage. He did roll a skull, so that's 1 damage, which isn't too bad honestly. It's very, very rare for that, and I'm not even sure on the channel it's ever paid out with a bunch of skulls and hurt him a ton. But either way, he then spent that 3 power to teleport an ally within 3 or 4, 2, and he did that to Malekith. Didn't move him the full range 2 though, just a little bit further forwards, but he is still within range 1 of that backhammer, which means he's not going to have to waste his first action on a awkward half move. So with 2 Inhumans left to go, it was eventually Medusa that went and ahed a little bit over where to send her. She could have went and got the hammer here, which means Black Bolt could go around the tree here to get to the Infinity Formula and secure that. Overall it works out the same points wise, and it feels like the hammer would do better with Black Bolt. That could be a mistake, but either way, as a result, Medusa moved up and is helping to contest that Infinity Formula to give her a bit more power to play with next turn, where she can do some nasty hair flips and stuff. And the last activation in Battle Round 1 for the Cabal was Malekith. He paid 1 of his 2 power to pick up the hammer he was placed next to via Red Skull's teleport. Moves medium, so he did so. He is contesting the Infinity Formula, which is now, you can just about make it out behind him. Again, very awkward shaped model. Knocked over the lamppost twice just trying to do the move correctly, and then he used his beam for 5 dice mystic up to 6 with the hammer Blood Boil. He generates 1 flat power for every attack, or every person hit in the attack I should say, and he did it on Omega Red, and Omega Red took 3 damage from it, reduced down to 2 because of his carbonadium spaghetti carbonara armor, reducing that down to 2. It would also poison him, but he is immune to poison, so not too bad there, all said and done. But Malekith is going to generate a little bit of extra power now where he's standing. And with that said, it is over to Black Bolt to end off the first turn. So Black Bolt moved up such that he was just within range 1 of the hammer, paid his 1 power to pick it up, and then moved medium again, ending up next to the police car, meaning that no one is actually holding that back serum there. But at the very least he is holding a hammer, and he and Omega Red are hoping to successfully take on Malekith, which should be interesting. 2 fairly powerful 4 threat and a 5 threat versus a 7 threat with a backup 4 threat behind him. Really intrigued to see how that plays out. But for now, we go to scoring for Battle Round 1. So then in Battle Round 1, there is a 1 point swing in Cabal's favour. They have 2 of the hammers, 1 on Malekith, 1 on Baron Zemo, and they hold the 2 Infinity Formulas closest to their deployment zone. Red Skull up there and Crossbones down here. So that puts them at 4 victory points. The Inhumans, they also have 2 hammers, 1 on Black Bolt, 1 on Omega Red, 2 victory points there. Nobody claims the Infinity Formula up there behind the car, the cop car, but this one down here is held by Ronan and Medusa. So they scored 3 victory points. Everyone within range 1 of the formula is getting an additional power. So that's Red Skull, Malekith, Medusa, Ronan and Crossbones. And as we go into Battle Round 2, Cabal hold priority, which means that Malekith will probably be striking out pretty toughly, but let's see what happens. So of course it was Malekith that got Battle Round 2 started, and we have a lot to cover, a lot of things triggering off of other things. So starting his turn, he spent 2 on Ferocity, which is a charge basically, but specifically he can only do his basic free attack range 2, 7 dice energy, although up to 8 because he has a hammer called the Blade of Midnight. So he moved up, very awkward. He flipped Red Skull when he was moving by accident because it was caught on one of his wings. He got caught up in Omega Red's tendrils when he was over here. It was a whole thing. Either way, he ended where you can see him. He did his Blade of Midnight attack, which has Pierce on a Wild. Not that it mattered for the first attack roll. And the other part of Ferocity is if he deals damage with that Blade of Midnight attack, he can throw the target size 4 or less small. So he got in there. He did 3, reduced down to 2 damage. And then he chucked Omega Red at the tree. Actually, I've just realised I think Omega Red would be dead. No, he would still be alive on 1 after getting hit into a tree because of the reduced damage from 3 down to 2. So he was alive on 1 after being chucked into the tree there. And as a result, Malekith did another Blade of Midnight. He's just within range 2, like just barely. And that did 6 damage, reduced down to 5. He only needed to do 1. So Omega Red did get dazed, and then he paid 1 to pick up his hammer. So Malekith now has 2 hammers, and is contesting the serum there. and is in general very scary, even without the hammers. A 7 dice free range 2 energy attack as his basic free attack is with Pierce. It's so good. But he isn't invincible. He has 444 across the board defense wise and 10 HP, but he's not invincible in theory. Oh, and totally forgot that would also proc, this is the other thing I forgot to mention, the Dark Council affiliation bonus, which isn't quite the same as Sam's affiliation bonus. You pick an ally, if you daze or KO an enemy, they heal 1 damage, they gain 1 power and can move small, so there's no special condition curing. Red Skull healed 1, he gained 1 power and has moved forwards ever so slightly, but still contesting the back serum there. With Omega Red down for the count, Medusa activated first for the Inhumans and spent 2 on Royal Decree. You pick an ally within 2 and then either place the ally within one of her or you place her within one of them. So she used that to kind of bunny hop over the car here, and it doesn't count as an action, which is the important part. So she's within one of Ronan there. And then she unleashed a Braid Bash on Baron Zemo, got the trigger for the flurry on it as well, which is a wild and a crit. First one though did 2 damage to him. The second one from the flurry did nothing. She still had an action left, so she did a third Braid Bash on Zemo. Didn't get the trigger for flurry on that one, and it did no damage with it. Hit below par for sure, which might be super important. Now there was an optional push on all of those Braid Bashes. Opted not to use them because Baron Zemo's got a hammer, so they don't really want him far away. Well, Medusa's bad day continues. Baron Zemo activated and started with a Steel Rush, spent 3 power on that, or 2 power, however much. An attack followed by an optional medium move. He did really well with his roll and managed to do 4 damage to her. Now she is pretty tanky on her healthy side, but that's still real bad. He then retreated medium from that Steel Rush to just within 1 on the far side of the Infinity Formula here. He has an unused action, but he has nothing else he wants to do. He's quite happy with how that went, so he's just going to stay there. Well, a bit short on activations for the Inhumans. They're down to their second last. It was Black Bolt. He flew over the car into contesting range for that Infinity Formula, although right now it is a draw. He then just used his basic energy bolt, 5 dice energy, with 1 extra thrown in for his hammer, and Pierce on wilds as well. I don't think that mattered, can't remember now. Either way though, he got Malekith pretty well. He got him for 3 damage, all said and done, and that was despite Malekith having 4 defense dice. So put a little bit of a dent in him. He's got 7 HP left, and he's done some bad stuff to Omega Red, but either way. So now it's over to either Crossbones or the Red Skull. So of those two, it was Crossbones who activated, and he did eventually back up to where you can see him just to make Ronan's life more annoying, but that was not before he spent 1 on Illicit Tech, the unaffiliated card that he or Sin can use. Pay 1 and it gives you access to the Explosive Plasma Rifle attack once in the turn, range 5, 6 dice energy, you gain power equal to damage dealt, and the target and any enemies within 2 of the target gain Incinerate. This was an effort to take Medusa out and also incinerate Ronan, and he did half of what he wanted to do. Only managed to do 1 damage. The attack roll was not great, even with the help of Strategic Genius there. So only 1 damage to Medusa. She has 1 health left and she has 6 health on her flip side, but she is incinerated now and it did spread to Ronan. And now that she's only got 1 health, going into the next turn there might actually be a benefit. So with very little he can do because he wants to be able to score some points, Ronan moved up ever so slightly and then for his other action shook his Incinerate. Didn't do anything else besides paying 2 to spend on Medpack, spend 2 and healed Medusa for 3, so she's only got 2 damage on her now, back to 4 health remaining. Oh boy, is there some Red Skull shenanigans to end off Battle Round 2. He moved up so that he was within 2 of Malekith and used Cosmic Invigoration. He paid 2 power, and he's within 2 of an allied character. Pay 2, if they have an activated token, you remove their activated token, you roll 3 dice and they suffer 1 damage for each hit, crit or wild. So Malekith has taken 1 additional damage, but he gets to activate again, and they were going to lose priority anyway, so he might as well bring out the big guns. Well, Malekith had some fun with that extra activation given to him by Red Skull, even though it cost him 1 damage. He had enough power on him just barely, because of the extra hammers he had. He has 2 hammers. He used Smash, which normally is a 2 cost, but it cost him 4 to play. And he picked the police car, size 2, smashed it, and then he gets 2 extra dice from this card added to his attacks this turn on top of the 2 dice he was getting from his hammers. He then had just enough power to do Butcher of Thors, 10 dice physical with Dark Curse on wilds to give stats effects, meaning that he was doing 14 dice against poor Black Bolt. And honestly, his attack roll was pretty good. Black Bolt managed, all said and done, to block 3 hits from it. But out of all the successes, there was not a single wild. Not that it matters because he got dazed, but still, he got dazed, he dropped his hammer, but Malekith was totally tapped power-wise. There's no one else to hit to generate power. So he's got an unused action, but he's going to stay and camp that Infinity Formula. Hammer got put down there, and actually since he dazed someone, that means that someone else can heal 1 damage, gain 1 power, and be moved. The only person it's really going to make a difference on is... actually, it might be himself. We'll have a little look into that if it is workable on himself, and cover that in the scoring phase. So then, Battle Round 2, looking at the wording for the Dark Council, it says when this character or an allied character dazes or KOs a target, choose another allied character. So it doesn't seem like because Malekith did the dazing, that he can choose himself. It has to be someone else and then they choose him. So given that Baron Zemo was picked, he has gained 1 power, healed 1 damage, didn't move at all because he's fine where he is down there. As for the scoring, as 2 of the Inhumans are down for the count and flipping their cards, the Inhumans have no hammers because the one they were holding on to is now on the floor with no one holding it. But they did manage to hold on to this Infinity Formula just thanks to Ronan there, so they gained 1 victory point, taking them to 4. The Cabal, they have 3 of the hammers. Zemo's got 1, Malekith's got 2, so that's 3 points right there, and they hold 3 of the Infinity Formulas. These 2 hold this one, Red Skull's on that one, Malekith on that one. So that takes them up to a massive 10, which is pretty scary, honestly, as we're only going into Battle Round 3. The Inhumans have priority. Black Bolt's flipping his card, he's got enough power to do Whisper. That could do some damage. If it does, then the potentiality for him gaining a bunch of hammers is there, but I guess we'll see. So Battle Round 3 got started with Black Bolt, and he tried his best and he did okay. He moved, picked up the hammer for 1 power, and then unleashed Whisper, the attack he only has on his flip side when he's serious. He has 9 health. It's a 9 dice physical up to 10, but he played for +1 cost Inhuman Royal Family. Oh, as we drop the card, there we are. Inhumans active, any number of Inhumans can pay 2 to play this card. He is the only one who chipped in that power. Once per round, each character that spent power to play this card can reroll any number of dice in 1 attack roll or defense roll. So he wanted to make sure Whisper did a lot. The initial roll was very bad, with some rerolls, got some hits through, 4 defense dice, all said and done Malekith took 3 more damage, putting him at 7, so he has 3 left on his healthy side, but he's still kicking. The important part is though that he got the wild on Whisper, so that means that he is staggered, and that means he's only doing 1 thing in his turn, which might be pivotal, honestly. Other thing to note, thought he was immune to poison, but Malekith is not immune to poison, so that's been retroactively applied for him ending a turn within 2 of Omega Red. Didn't gain 2 power in the power phase as a result this turn, only gained 1. Don't remember if it would have been that way in the previous turn, which might have made a difference because he was totally tapped after doing Butcher of Thors, so that might have meant that wasn't possible thanks to him having 2 hammers. Too late to go back now, but I applied it now. He's immune to Hex and Stun, incidentally. So despite only having 1 action, Malekith did activate for the Cabal, and it's worth pointing out he could have used the action to go retreat next to Red Skull. We'd have to get chased. He's generating 2 victory points as is, 3 if he's helping to hold that point back there. Red Skull could move up, teleport him to safety, and then go try and steal this at the end of the turn because he's still healthy and Omega Red and Black Bolt are not. That's boring though, so Malekith is going to stay being hyper aggressive, but just making it known that is probably the smarter option to get a super quick win, but let's see if he can have some fun. So he stayed where he was for his 1 action after shaking the stun. He used his Blade of Midnight on Omega Red, just because Black Bolt has so much health on his wounded side. Managed to do 3 damage down to 2 to him, which is pretty good, although keep in mind it's 7 dice boosted up to 9 with a Pierce. And then after doing that, he used Midnight Phantasmagoria for, well, normally 3, but it cost him 5, which is pretty expensive. But he pushes all enemy characters within 3 of him away small, and for every character pushed, he heals 1 damage. Omega Red couldn't be pushed further away, but he is pushed, and so is Black Bolt. He's been pushed down here, so he healed 2 damage, so he's back to 5. He's staying claiming that point, So Omega Red needs to be able to do 5 damage to him to daze him. If he does, he'll be drowning in hammers, but we'll see what happens. Well, Omega Red activated and his goal was to try and do 5 damage to Malekith. In the end, as you can already see, he ended up doing 2. He did 2 Red Terrors for a total of 8 power on him. 7 dice physical with Absorb Essence on a wild. So for any wild, you can change a hit crit or a wild in the opponent's defense roll to a skull, and he gains 1 power for every skull created this way. He only had 1 wild across both rolls. In fact, if you're curious why those dice are sitting there, that was the second Red Terror roll. There was 1 crit, so 1 extra die thrown in for that. That's what he was rolling. Very below par. The first one was about average, but the defense roll was pretty decent. So all in all, Malekith is back up to 7 damage, so he's got 3 health left. He didn't bother moving in, not that he could if he wanted to attack twice, because he's wounded and Malekith is still healthy. But that does mean, with his inability to take Malekith out, that he's now generating 3 victory points sitting there. 2 hammers and the point itself. So that might be game right there. We're still obviously going to play it on, but good grief. Well, a little bit of a BM busy work activation next for the Cabal. The simply activated Red Skull, he moved ever so slightly to the far side of the formula again to potentially do something in the next turn if there is a next turn, and ended his activation with 1 unused action, trying to force some movement down this end of the table before Crossbones or Baron Zemo activate. Well, the Inhumans activated Ronin and there was no time to be sitting on points, might as well try and smash something. He moved up Meacham, and he did go to contest this formula, to be fair. He then did his basic strike onto Baron Zemo, managed to do 2 damage with it, which isn't too bad, and got a wild, which is a throw, but it's specifically a throw away, so I wasn't 100% sure if Crossbones could be caught in that arc. It didn't seem like it, so he got chucked into the dumpster instead for 1 more damage. That's him up to 4 on his healthy side now, so he's getting quite close to being dazed. Well, unlike Malekith, Baron Zemo decided that discretion was the better part of valor. He used Steel Rush for his first action, managed to do 1 damage to Ronin, not too much, with a bleed though for a wild, and that also let him medium move, which put him in the alleyway here. He then just moved his long and retreated up here. But when he did damage to Ronin, Ronin judged him and found him wanting, so that's why he has the judgment condition there as well, which probably won't matter at this point, but hey, why not? Medusa moved up medium and then spent 3 or 4 on split ends, her big area to attack it. Technically should have done 1 damage to Ronin as well, because it's 1 flat damage, it doesn't say ignores allies. But it hit Crossbones, all said and done 3 damage and a bleed. Now she could have then just picked him up and thrown him, but it didn't seem worth it because the 1 damage from throwing him into scenery here is not going to kill him or daze him, and he can just use aggressive to go back. Oh, I should point out that would be 4 damage, but he paid 1 for Inure to Pain to bring it down. Forgot about that. So it would have been 4, but yeah, the throw wouldn't kill him. He can just use aggressive to walk right back the same distance, or near enough the same distance. So he's not, or rather she's not, and they're both on healthy side. Oh no, she got healed. So yeah, they're both comfortable on healthy side. So they are holding it. But again, I don't think it makes a difference, but either way we're over to Crossbones to end off the turn. And maybe even the game, honestly. Well, this was an interesting activation. It would not have made a difference if Medusa had thrown him, for the record, for what we're about to talk about. She could have hair flipped him, it's a throw small. He could then have used aggressive, which is an advance against whoever just damaged him small, so the only difference would be to have 1 more damage on him than he otherwise would. Crossbones activated and did a quick tally of how the points would look, and the game would not have ended if things had stayed exactly the same, with the Inhumans now controlling that point. However, Crossbones can just wander small, kind of diagonally, like doop doop, to there, another small move, to there, and that is in range 1 of that infinity formula, and he's the only one at it, which means he's claiming it, which means the game just ended. So as we enter the cleanup phase of turn 3, let's just cover this officially. Black Bolt is holding on to 1 hammer for 1 victory point for the Inhumans. They are also holding on to this formula for 1 victory point, giving them 2, taking their total to 6. The Cabal have 3 hammers, which took them to 13, and they hold 3 formulas. Red Skull's holding 1, Malekith is holding 1, and Crossbones right at the end holding 1 for 3 more victory points, meaning that they get to the 16 required to win at the middle point of the game, which is remarkable. We'll be back in a second to share some thoughts on this very quick match. So how big an influence was Malekith on the table? First of all, let's just talk about the practicality of his model real quick. Omega Red's tentacles and his model did not play nicely with each other at all, which made it a little bit awkward to get them next to each other. The Red Skull got flipped, I think twice, I think we've mentioned that, but he got flipped when Malekith moved away from him in turn 2 because his tail got caught on him, I guess, or his wing. Because he's got these little like dangly bits under the wings that just catch on people. It's so awkward to move him around a table, and this was a fairly sparse table as well. So on the practicality level, you couldn't even fit down this alley. Like, there's no way to, you can't position him. So my advice would be, don't model him with the wings. It wouldn't be comic accurate for the tiger not to have the wings, but it makes it so much easier to play using him. Don't use the wings, or magnetize them if you can. I think I've heard some people talking about that it's hard to magnetize them because of how heavy the wings are. Either way. On the table though, it's a bit hard to judge his attack power when it's hammers, especially when he managed to grab hold of 2. I would actually say though, despite him having hammers, I feel like his damage results were a little low, considering the number of dice he's rolling. 7 dice on his normal one, like 10 dice on the Butcher of Thors. Those are a lot of dice against 3 defense dice most of the time. So I actually feel like, especially considering he had 1 and then 2 hammers, he was rolling a little low damage wise. His defense rolls were really good. 4s across the board, no rerolls or anything like that. He was rolling pretty well for his defense rolls, which is just dice luck. But the amount of dice he's rolling for his attacks does make him exceptionally threatening. Being able to heal off of Phantasmagoria is great. Him teaming up with Red Skull and Red Skull having Cosmic Invigoration in his back pocket for a tactics card is super, super good. So I think they make a great team together, even though they're both separate leaders of the Cabal. I feel like to make them even more efficient, maybe drop Crossbones and Zemo, take a 3 threat and a 2 threat, or 2 threats. I don't know. I feel like you just need some point runners and distractions and have Red Skull and Malekith murder everybody. Which is basically what he did. Omega Red didn't get to do much at all. I figured he would be a fair matchup against Malekith, because he wouldn't get poisoned by the beam, the blood boil attack that he has, which he did in turn 1. But no, he didn't get, and the reduced damage as well. Got to remember that. So Malekith did pretty much destroy and dominate with Red Skull's help, with hammers as well. But hammers got used against him, and he still didn't go down. He had 3 health left at the end of his 10 health. Let me just, how much health does he have on his flip side? I think it is less. 8. So he has 18 in total, almost Hulk. But yeah, he is. It's almost like they made him deliberately annoying to move around the table as a detriment to make up for the fact that his attacks are so good. Either way, I feel like this would have played out massively differently had he not been on the table. Obviously, it would free up 7 threat with which you could bring a 4 and a 3, but he's too powerful. He feels too powerful. He took a Whisper to the face and lived, but that's just defense dice roll luck and bad attack rolls on Black Bolt's part. The number of attacks he can put out, he's really powerful. I'm surprised he's not an 8 threat after seeing him in action now. Either way though, that is going to do it. Thank you very much for watching. I sincerely hope you enjoyed. Please do remember to show your support and subscribe if you want to see more. And if you want to go above and beyond to support what we do here on the channel, This Miniature Game and others, please do consider checking out the Patreon or pressing that thanks button. It helps out a great deal. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Ta-ta for now.